All right, this is Scott Paulson, the Rooster of Tucson, here to wake you up live from Hack Studios, Arizona's #1 source of uncompromised news. Once again, welcome to the Citizen Soldier Podcast, where we're cutting through the propaganda, exposing the corruption, and strengthening the mind and sharpening your instincts, and turning everyday people into disciplined men and women who refuse to live blind. And this is not no background noise, people. No corporate media comfort food. No scripted bull crap designed to keep you passive, okay? This right here is a signal for the people who know something is wrong and want to become stronger because of it. And today we're talking about right here at home, as always, good old Tucson, Arizona. A city with beauty, pride, hardworking people, and a city with culture, history, and desert toughness. But underneath everything, it's also a city under pressure. Pressure from the crime, pressure from the addiction, from the poor leadership, from the rising frustration, from these systems many people no longer want to trust. It's building up. And this episode is about the awareness and about survival. And it's about learning how to move through this city with confidence, intelligence, and discipline, while all these other people out here are just walking through this life asleep. Because if the times are changing, then you must change with them. Tucson still has good people everywhere you look. Families trying to build stable homes, workers grinding through these long days, and small businesses just trying to stay open, and neighbors helping neighbors when times get hard. But many citizens feel that the city is being mismanaged. They see the money spent and ask where the results are. They see neighborhoods slipping and wonder why these basic standards are failing. They see repeated problems and hear these recycled talking points. It's becoming unacceptable. And a lot of residents believe that the leadership has failed to protect the quality of life that regular people work hard for here. And there is also some deep frustration with the police as well. Some feel law enforcement is compromised. And it has become reactive instead of preventive. And, some believe these insiders are protected while these average citizens are left just waiting and wondering, what's going to be the solution to better our neighborhoods. And, some believe that the criminal elements here become too comfortable in these areas where enforcement should be stronger. And whether people call it corruption or incompetence or infiltration or neglect, the end result feels pretty much the same. The trust breakdown. And when trust breaks down, people, tensions rise. You feel it when businesses harden security. You feel it when families avoid areas after dark. And you feel it when people no longer expect quick help. You feel it more in day-to-day situations. It's a travesty. You call the cops and they don't even come anymore. Citizens start believing that they are on their own. That is when awareness becomes essential, my friends, because if institutions weaken, personal responsibilities must become stronger. Motivation without action is entertainment. So here is how you move smarter here in Tucson in your everyday life. First and foremost, you have to stop walking distracted around here. If you're in a parking lot or a gas station or a grocery store, apartment complex, or a sidewalk, keep your head up and your eyes moving. Most people advertise their vulnerability by staring into their phones. So, second, when possible, park where there's light it's a lot more comforting. Don't be parking in the dark alleyways, the dark spots. Park where foot traffic is normal. Park where cameras are visible. Avoid the isolated corners, when you have the option. Third, enter and exit with purpose, my friends. Have your keys ready before you even reach your vehicle. Don't stand outside your car digging through your bag. Get in, lock the doors, and move. And fourth, you have to trust the atmosphere. Some places feel wrong before anything even happens. You have to listen to your gut. That's your third eye blinking and telling you something. If a location is chaotic, unstable, or aggressive or sketchy, then get the hell out of there. There's no point for you to be there. And fifth, vary patterns, okay? If you do the same route, the same gas station, the same time every day, people are going to study your habits. Change up the routines when possible, and your timing, and six, control what is visible. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight. Don't display unnecessary information, and do not make yourself an easy target. And seventh, know your exits, people. Any building you enter, know two ways out. That is not paranoia, people. That is preparedness. Prepared people stay calmer because they already thought ahead, my friend. It's like chess. You got to checkmate these people. And with the street awareness and the human behavior out there, people, let me give you some insights, many people ignore, because most danger, it gives clues before it arrives. People telegraph these intentions. Watch the hand, watch the eyes, their movement, their spacing, their mannerisms. Someone constantly scanning pockets or looking at your wrist and, looking at doors, or, people may be, they be planning right there in sight, plotting on you, and you don't even know it. Someone closing distance too quickly without even a reason deserves attention, my friends. Look at that poor lady at the gas station. Just walked out for a smoke and got greeted with a hammer to the face. So you have to be prepared out there, people. Someone creating distraction while another person kind of circles may be a part of the setup too. Keep your head on a swivel. Tucson has become one of the most shadiest places next to Phoenix to live to. So, learn to read behavior instead of the words that are being spoken around you. And also, you have to understand this, my friends. Predators often choose convenience because they look for distracted people. They look for the timid posture. They look for confusion. They look for those who seem unaware. So you have to carry yourself differently, my friends. Stand upright, walk steady, know where you're going, and protect your alertness. Many people out there avoid people who look difficult to exploit. Like me, a guy walking around tattoos, lifts weights. They don't want nothing of this. They might want to put me in the ground, but that's about it. And the battle is not only outside, people. It is inside your mind, because the stress out there, it can weaken judgment faster than crime can. Bills, pressure, family responsibility, fatigue, anger, all of it can cloud thinking. And that is why discipline matters. Wake up early than necessary, create order before the day creates chaos. And do as I do, train your body daily, read something useful, some philosophy, some tactic manuals, and limit the constant negativity to your brain, okay? Put the phone down, because that's all we see nowadays. You have to reduce that pointless drama, my friends. When your internal world is stable, your external decisions improve. If someone insults you in traffic, let it go. It's not worth it. Trust me. If strangers act foolish in public, do not volunteer for their chaos. And if tensions rise nearby, create distance before ego traps you. Winning often looks boring, trust me. It looks like avoiding bad situations. It looks like staying calm, going home safely. And like I said, building stronger blocks out there within our communities, because weak communities isolate. And the strong communities connect, know the decent people around you. You have to learn neighbors' names, trade phone numbers with trusted people, but right now it's kind of difficult, especially with all these terrorist cartel cells working around us and living next door, and it is very rough. So share that useful information when suspicious activity happens. Document everything. Support the businesses as well that still care about their neighborhoods. Always help the elderly. A criminal loves anonymous streets, and a criminal hates connected streets. And that is how cities recover. Not only from top down, but from block by block. And if this city has frustrated you, then good, because frustration can become fuel. If it wasn't for the corruption, this podcast probably wouldn't even exist. I'd be doing other things. But you know what? As a father and a proud citizen of Tucson and a member of the entertainment community and the music community, I have had it up to here with watching this city burn. And, you have to use all this knowledge to become more aware, people. Use it to lead your household better. Use it to become the person who stays composed when everybody else is in a panic. Your family needs strength more than complaints. So, and your kids definitely need examples more than speeches. So set the bar, people. Your neighborhood needs dependable people more than social media outrage. So, be the one who trains, the one who learns, who keeps promises, and who shows up day in and day out. And be the one who stays ready under the pressure. Tucson does not need more spectators. It needs more capable citizen soldiers. Once again, you have to live awake, people. Move with purpose and treat people with respect, but never surrender your boundaries. Keep your body capable because weakness limits options. And keep your mind sharp because confusion creates that danger. And once again, my friends, stay humble enough to learn and strong enough to act. And that is our code, my friends. This has been the Citizen Soldier Podcast. I'm Scott Paulson, the Rooster of Tucson, live here from Hack Studios. And remember this, my friends, every time that you step outside, the careless drift and the prepared observe. The weak panic and the disciplined respond. Once again, keep your eyes open, keep your standards high, and your circle strong, baby. And once again, keep building yourself while all these other people are making excuses, okay? You got to stand firm, move smart, and stay ready. Until next time, stay tactical, stay motivated, and stay a citizen soldier.